Here we go. Hi, happy Friday. Welcome to Leadership Lunch Chat. I'm Jennifer Wilson, and with me today is my very good friend and 5-year leadership lunch chat buddy, Amy Vetter. Hey, Amy.
Hello.
I'm so
Excited to
glad
be
to have you.
here.
Me too. And, I was thinking about how long we've been doing this, and it's over 5 years. And so that's ridiculous. Time flies when you're having fun. So Amy and I process things facing the profession, facing human beings, facing us as consultants. And today we're going to talk about positivity and the power of positivity and the importance of it. And the angle that I'm going to start us with, or that caused me to think this might be a good idea today, is the idea that a lot of us, we act like all the stuff outside us, the people that we live with, and the news, and the government, and the profession, and regulations, and clients, and I don't know what else, coworkers, certainly colleagues, the partners, all these people, they cause us to have an internal vibe, like you made me be in a bad mood, or you were grumpy so I'm grumpy, or you're fearful so I'm fearful. And I just have been spending a lot of time with leaders talking about how we generate our own positivity, how we have to practice generating our own positivity, how we can have negative thoughts and will have negative thoughts. It's your inner dialogue tends to be sort of skeptical, cynical. Some of us have a more judgmental to self and judgmental of others inner dialogue. We can be negative, and that's okay. It's There's nothing wrong with you if you have sort of negative, doomsday kind of, things aren't going my way, Eeyore, the donkey from Winnie the Pooh kind of thoughts sometimes come into your mind. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you, but you have the power minute by minute to choose, like, what am I going to do with those, and how can I generate some positivity? And you have the ability not only to shift yourself, but by shifting yourself and shifting your language, shifting others too, changing the vibe of the people around you. And my mom was a big student of Norman Vincent Peale, the father of the power of positivity movement. And she raised us kids with all kinds of messages that she was getting as she was reading his stuff and listening to him. And I realize as I go out in the world that a lot of people didn't get those messages, that they didn't have a Della Lee in their ear, and they don't have her there now. And so, Amy, I just thought we'd spend this time talking about that and what you do to generate positivity and how you coach others, because you're certainly, self-managing all the time. So maybe you want to share some ideas.
Yeah, so positivity is one of those things that you might feel like it's being forced, or that you've got to have this good attitude, because what happens is our brains naturally go to the negative. That's where we gossip. That's the stuff we come home with from work. We don't focus on maybe the good experiences we had or good conversations we have. What tears us up on the inside and stays in our brains are the things that are more negative, and that's where we kind of feed it um, to grow. And so it really is a practice to work on it. And I want to say too that this is a practice. Even though I teach it, I've got to do it myself. And we all go through ebbs and flow in life where you start noticing you're falling into more negative thoughts. And then the key is that awareness is when you hear yourself talking like that, when you feel like your energy's lower, that's when to shift it. And shifting it means little things, right? Like, but it is contagious. So when we have those negative feelings, it affects our energy. and then it's contagious to the people around us. And so it's really important, if we want to create awareness of how we're feeling on the inside and maybe how we're affecting people on the outside, that we give ourselves space throughout the day to check in. And that can just be, a couple minutes in your day, but where you kind of reset and just notice in stillness how you're feeling. So that could be, a quick meditation by closing your eyes, but just observing, like, am I feeling amped up? Am I feeling like I'm gritting my teeth and I'm just tense today? And what it is that's really important about this is it's not judgment. So even becoming aware of the fact that, yeah, you are tense today, you're stressed, you're frustrated, whatever that might be, it's important that we also just come out of that in observation of how we're feeling in the moment, and then what we need to do to bring ourselves back to equilibrium. So if we feel tense, if we feel our jaws are tight or that we're angry, what do we need to do to bring ourselves back so that we're feeling okay? And one of the things that you can do, if it works for you, is like sometimes, like, I'll turn on upbeat music
Oh,
to, you know, just shift my energy. I might be even getting tired and have like know that certain music is going to change my energy. Walk around, get something to eat. A lot of times it's dehydration, that we
yes.
just haven't drank enough water during the day because we're going meeting to meeting. So it's the things that we can do to bring ourselves back into balance so that we show up intentionally, rather than just piling it in like a snowball going down, a mountain. And by the end of the day, it's just so built up, we feel like we're going to explode.
Yeah. Well, I love those small adjustments. And one thing that I tell people is you have to take 100% responsibility for your mindset. And it's okay, like I I grieved the death of my mother. I still have grief. Grief washes over me. I'm not trying to be positive and inauthentic, but I am being careful not to allow myself to sit inside negative thoughts. And grief is a powerful one, but there's all kinds of other stuff like frustration or irritation, or sometimes there's a like a I don't know, a hopelessness or negative foreboding, almost projecting negative into the future that your mind can do. And when you catch yourself, and that's what, the self awareness that Amy's talking about, you got to be aware, you got to catch yourself and say, wow, I'm really projecting some kind of negative stuff out into the future. And then you could say, well, wait a minute, what do I want to have happen? And one of the things that Norman Vincent Peale and really was a big proponent of is this concept called visualization. And visualization is, creating a positive visual in your head. And sometimes you can create this positive visual like a vision board and paste pictures on it if you want. But, it could be outside you, this positive visual, but you can generate it inside your head. You can generate it in a form of meditation, or just like literally build a picture in your head of an outcome that you want to have happen. And instead of like the negative outcomes, the fear-based outcomes that you might be generating, visualize the positive. See other people happy. See your circumstances where you want them to be. And I have, my mother would always say, if you can see it, then you will be it. You can see it. You've got to see it. So we would sit and literally try to see it in our minds, what we wanted to have happen. And they call that manifestation. That's a more recent word that's used, manifest it. But to me, visualize it is one way to do it, to shift it. To you're dreading how a client conversation is going to go or something, and you're picturing the negative. And it's okay to prepare for objections and how am I going to handle it, and think ahead to what could happen. But it's also important to take a minute and center yourself with some positive visuals. Picture it going well, make it happen, cause it to be so. So anyway, that's one thing. And the other thing is, you were on music, and I love that idea. Music does shift a whole bunch of it, of us. It will shift a whole bunch of us. Just put some on and try that. We know there's a whole bunch of other things. Gratitude will shift you.
Mhm.
Um, you can be sort of focused on your problems, and we can point out problems all day long, and we can list them like crazy, and all the stuff we're afraid of, and all the stuff that's negative in our lives, and all the things we wish were different. And we're really good at that, and we run that tape a lot. But then just what's good, what's already good, what's amazingly good, what are you blessed about? And so that's another shifter is just two or three things you're really grateful for.
Mhm.
And we've talked a lot about gratitude practice in Leadership Lunch Chat in 5 years. And I think Amy and I talked about it probably 100 times in 2020 when we started this thing, because the pandemic was happening and we were scared. We didn't know what was going to occur in our country or in our profession or to ourselves physically. So we did a lot of gratitude practice, and it works. For sure. So, what else, Amy? What else are you thinking?
Yeah, well, and I, like you brought up grief. My mom passed away. It's been almost a year. And it did definitely affect my energy. And one of the things that I would recommend to anyone, which I highly, highly rely on myself, are third parties to help. So, this year I still have gone to my therapist, to help work through it. And this is what taking 100% responsibility. But I also went to an energy healer to work through where I've been blocked and, to try to move through some of the stuff that I've been going through. And a third place is my own coach, because I've got to have the right mindset to be able to run a business, keeping innovative, creative, helping other people. And so, especially, I think in leadership, and I hear this so much, is you take on everybody else on a team, but you don't necessarily feel yourself like you need to or get the support that you need. And it might seem selfish, but between, your own personal responsibilities that you have outside of work and at work to take care of your team, um, you know, like Jen, she's taking care of her father as well. Like, so it can bounce between, where you're sandwiched in too. It's important to get the outside support that you need to help you work through those emotions, because they do affect how productive you can be, how much energy you have to show up to work, and
Mhm.
how you respond to people as well. And so, kind of where we started off was, you know, that it's easy to kind of blame the world for how you're feeling. But the thing is that this is the human condition. One thing that I definitely learned through, the years of my yoga practice and mindfulness practices that I spend time training on is like, this is the human condition for thousands and thousands of years. People have been trying to figure out how to feel better, right? And
Yeah,
taking that responsibility internally to go, like, what do I have available to me within my body to help me to survive each day and make sure that I'm, not taking it for granted, that I can enjoy the moments, that I can be present, whether it's in meetings, whether it's with my family, and so forth. So I think it's really important that you don't try to always do this alone. Um, you know, we spend, I mean, I can spend $7 a day at Starbucks, but sometimes we have to make the investment in getting a coach or a therapist or however, you need that help, or in your religious organizations, support groups, so that you've got the support you need to work through whatever's going on internally for you.
for sure. 100%. Sometimes it's too big to handle yourself. The personal shifts that we should be practicing daily don't work, and you've got to get bring in bigger guns to assist, and people that don't have a dog in the race, or aren't invested in your story, so that they could help you sort it more effectively and really look at how you're feeling. And they're, our family sometimes are our really best friends. Over time, they get sort of in there and get attachments themselves to things about our lives, and they aren't necessarily as good a coach or as good a therapist because of that attachment. The other, I'm going to take us back to something kind of simpler, and it's just watching language, and recognizing the power of our words. Words matter. We said that, over and over and over again on the National Pipeline Project. Words matter. Words matter. Let's pay attention to the words here. Because we can paint a word picture, and the word picture can sound pretty defeated and pretty negative or pretty bleak or whatever it is. And we have to just recognize that somehow, in order to shift our positivity and the power that we feel in circumstances, we sometimes have to change our language and change our words. And I have for the whole time. Convergence is 25 years old, and early days, with no money and lots of ideas, and trying to talk about, selling leadership development. And people were like, leadership, why do we need that? That sounds like something from church. Leadership, what's that? So back then, being kind of scared that maybe this idea wasn't going to work, I generated the idea of being unstoppable. I thought, I like that word. I really like that word, unstoppable. And there are lots of roadblocks and lots of barriers and lots of naysayers. And my own inner dialogue is one of them, sometimes like throwing tomatoes at me as I run by, and I'm like, yeah. I got to figure out how to tell myself it's going to be okay, and convince myself to scramble over another hurdle. And so I just started saying, you're unstoppable. I'm unstoppable, and it helped me immensely, and helps me still in racing and running. And I don't want to run 2 more miles, but that's what the plan calls for, or whatever, and then it's just like, how you're going to feel if you don't, and you can do this. You're unstoppable, So what is your mantra? You probably need a few. Sometimes mine is just, yes, you can. And I have to say it out of my mouth because my head is like, oh, I don't want to, you can't, what if you get injured? You don't have time. It's got a million excuses and stories that it's telling me. And so sometimes I just have to open up my mouth and say to myself, yes, you can, or yes, you will. And I know that sounds crazy, but it works. And it's like I power over myself. And but with words, it's a language thing. So I just wanted to offer that up to our friends here, because maybe it'll help you. And maybe you already have something that you're running inside your head. It might be even more powerful if you say it sometimes out of your mouth.
Yeah. Well, along those lines, I've actually been doing an exercise with my coach on, the stories that repeat in our mind. So throughout your life, and no one else can see them, right? Like they're happening behind the scenes, that affects your energy, that affects how you show up. And we've been doing a brainstorming exercise of like, what are all the negative stories that you tell yourself that you need to release? And then what is the new story that you'll replace it with? And just that little brainstorming exercise creates those new mantras, right, for you, because that repetitive story in your head is something from your past, or however, it got there, that it's important that you release it, but you also know how to replace it. It's not just like, I don't want to think that, well, what are you going to think instead? So when the monkey mind happens and you've got to pull it back, where can you replace that and make sure that you're feeling better, that you've got a better outlook, and that thought is just not true.
I love that. I love that. I went to a leadership program once, and it was multi-part, and the second part of it, which was a couple of days, 3 days long, something like that, they had us write the worst thing that ever happened to us on a yellow pad of paper in as much detail as we could. And, they said it should be like 6 or more pages of detail in the story. The worst thing that ever happened to you. And then they made us read it aloud to a total stranger with a Kleenex box and this yellow pad of paper. And they made us read it aloud over and over again. And the stranger wasn't allowed to have empathy. They weren't allowed to say, "Oh, that's awful," or anything like that. They were just supposed to nod their head and try to remain uninvolved and just be a passive kind of listener. And, the first time you read it, you're like, you're just totally bawling your head off. And by the 6th time you read it, you almost laugh at the parts that you bawled at. And it's not because it was a funny thing, but it's so ridiculous to tell the story over and over again. It's so absurd that you were so upset when you told the story. You just laugh at it. And then I never told that story again. After that, I let go of that bad boy. It was gone forever. It wasn't as dramatic and as meaningful anymore to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was I didn't even have to replace it. It was just like, I will never tell that story again. That's absurd. And the fact that I brought so much to it, and it doesn't negate that it happened to me. It did.
Mm-hmm.
It did happen to me. But how much power I gave it and how much airtime I gave it when I told people and stuff. Gosh, it's awful. So it was such a great distinction for me about letting go of something horrible, big, real, but not playing it any longer.
Yes.
Love that. So powerful.
Yeah.
So amazing. Yeah. Well, listen, I know we're at time. It seems like this was a subject we could get some energy behind, Amy. And it seems like we had some good fans and friends out there listening with us. And I'd love you to share your own strategies. If you see this in social, please post your own ideas or things you've learned along the way that helped with your positivity. If you ever have any ideas for Amy and I on things you want us to process with you, please let us know. We'd love to hear them. We appreciate you so much. And Amy, I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful for you. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep. Take care.